Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of the research vessel Stellar Dawn and felt the familiar hum of the ship's engines vibrating through her bones. 3 years she had spent working in this cramped laboratory. 3 years of failed experiments and broken theories, while the galaxy looked down on humanity as nothing more than clever animals who had stumbled into space travel. The other races had given humans scraps of outdated technology and expected gratitude in return. Elena stared at the dark matter containment chamber that sat in the center of her lab like a metal tomb. Inside that chamber lay humanity's greatest secret and their most desperate hope. For months, she and her team had been trying to create a stable dark matter reaction that could power their ships without relying on the expensive fuel cells that the Galactic Council sold to human colonies at crushing prices. Jake Miller wiped grease from his hands as he crawled out from under the containment unit. The young engineer had volunteered for this assignment, knowing it might be his last. Dark matter experiments had killed more human scientists than any war, but Jake never complained about the danger. He believed in their work with the same faith that had once driven humans to cross oceans and climb mountains. Lisa Chang sat at her monitoring station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed energy readings and particle flow patterns. As the ship's xenobiologist, she understood better than most how the other galactic species viewed humanity. They saw humans as useful pets, good for manual labor and simple tasks, but lacking the intelligence for real scientific advancement. Lisa had spent too many years listening to alien academics explain why human brains were too primitive for complex physics. The 3 scientists worked in comfortable silence as their ship drifted through the empty space beyond Earth's outer colonies. Admiral Kevin Stone had given them unlimited resources and complete secrecy for this project, but Elena knew that even Stone was beginning to lose faith. The military needed results, and humanity needed hope. Elena checked her instruments one final time before beginning the test sequence. Every previous attempt had ended in failure, with the dark matter either dissipating harmlessly or exploding with enough force to vaporize half their laboratory. This time felt different somehow, though Elena could not explain why her hands were steadier and her mind clearer than it had been in months. Jake activated the magnetic containment field while Lisa monitored the particle injection system. The dark matter appeared on their screens as a swirling cloud of possibility, neither fully matter nor energy, but something that existed in the spaces between reality. Ancient races had theorized about dark matter for millions of years, but none had ever successfully harnessed its power for practical use. Elena began the ignition sequence, her voice calm and professional as she called out each step to her teammates. The containment chamber filled with a strange purple light that seemed to bend the air around it. Energy readings spiked beyond anything they had recorded before, but the reaction remained stable and controlled. Something extraordinary was happening inside the chamber. The dark matter was not just burning or exploding as it had in previous tests. Instead, it was organizing itself into complex patterns that pulsed with mathematical precision. Elena watched in amazement as the energy output climbed higher and higher, while the reaction grew more stable rather than more chaotic. Jake's instruments showed impossible readings as the dark matter began affecting space itself around the containment unit. Gravity fluctuated in waves that made loose objects float and spin in lazy circles. The very fabric of reality seemed to ripple like water disturbed by a thrown stone. Lisa's biological sensors detected something even more remarkable. The dark matter was resonating with human brainwaves in a way that made no scientific sense. It was as if the energy was somehow aware of their presence and was responding to their thoughts and intentions. The reaction grew stronger when Elena focused her mind on control and stability. The breakthrough came without warning or fanfare. One moment they were conducting another routine test, and the next moment their ship was surrounded by a bubble of twisted space-time that bent light and gravity to their will. The stellar dawn had not just created energy from dark matter. It had learned to dance with the fundamental forces of the universe. Elena realized what they had accomplished as their ship's navigation systems registered impossible readings. They had not just built a new type of engine. They had discovered a way to fold space itself, to step outside the normal rules of physics that govern travel between stars. In one moment of accidental genius, humanity had surpassed every other species in the galaxy. Jake ran diagnostics on their position and found that the ship had somehow moved 3 light-years in the span of a single heartbeat. They were no longer drifting in Earth's outer system, but floating in deep space near a red giant star that should have been weeks away, even at maximum conventional speed. The dark matter had carried them through dimensions that human science barely understood. Lisa's scans showed no damage to their ship or their bodies from the instantaneous journey. Whatever force had transported them had done so with perfect safety and precision. They had traveled farther and faster than any human vessel in history, and they had done it using nothing more than a handful of exotic particles and their own determination. Elena opened a secure communication channel to Admiral Stone back on Earth, though she was not sure her message would reach him across such vast distances. When Stone's face appeared on her screen only seconds later, she realized that their dark matter field was somehow maintaining real-time communication across impossible distances. They had not just broken the rules of travel, but the rules of information transfer as well. Admiral Stone listened in stunned silence as Elena explained what had happened during their test. His weathered face showed none of the excitement that Elena felt, only the grim calculation of a military leader who understood the implications of ultimate power. Stone had spent his career watching humanity struggle against superior alien technology, and now his species held the key to forces that could reshape the galaxy. The 3 scientists spent the next several hours running additional tests and confirming their initial results. Each experiment proved that humanity had stumbled upon something that the galaxy's ancient civilizations had never achieved. Dark matter responded to human consciousness in ways that seemed to violate every known law of physics, as if their species had been designed specifically to harness these exotic forces. Elena knew that everything would change once word of their discovery reached the wider galaxy. Humanity would no longer be the weak newcomers begging for scraps of outdated technology. They would be the species that had mastered the very foundations of reality itself, and every other civilization would have to recognize their power. 6 months had passed since Elena Rodriguez and her team made their breakthrough discovery, and the galaxy continued spinning in ignorance of humanity's new power. Admiral Kevin Stone had ordered complete secrecy while human engineers worked around the clock to build a fleet of vessels equipped with dark matter engines. Hidden construction sites and remote asteroid fields buzzed with activity as humanity prepared to reveal its true capabilities to an unsuspecting universe. Captain Ryan Foster stood on the bridge of Earth's Pride, the first military vessel designed specifically around dark matter propulsion technology. The ship looked nothing like the clumsy human vessels that had previously limped between star systems using borrowed alien technology. Instead of the bulky fusion reactors and massive fuel tanks that marked human desperation, Earth's Pride was sleek and elegant, its hull containing forces that could bend reality itself. Ryan had commanded conventional human warships for 15 years, always knowing that his vessels were inferior to anything the galactic powers could field. Human ships were slow, poorly armed, and built from materials that other species considered barely adequate for orbital debris. The galaxy's military forces had never taken humanity seriously, because human weapons could barely scratch the shields of a proper alien battlecruiser. Commander Beth Turner supervised the final preparations aboard New Horizon, a colony ship that would carry 10,000 human settlers to establish new worlds beyond the reach of galactic interference. Unlike the previous generation of colony vessels that took months or years to reach their destinations, New Horizon could travel to any star system in the galaxy within hours. The ship's dark matter engines had turned the vast distances between worlds into minor inconveniences. Beth had spent her career watching human colonies struggle to survive on marginal worlds that the galactic powers had deemed worthless. Human settlements were always placed on planets with harsh climates or dangerous wildlife, worlds that other species had rejected as too difficult or expensive to develop. The aliens gave humanity these scraps and expected gratitude for their generosity. Chief Engineer Carl Davis made his final adjustments to the dark matter containment systems that powered both ships. Carl had worked with Elena Rodriguez during the original experiments and understood the technology better than anyone, except the original research team. He knew that the engines did far more than simply move ships between stars. They could manipulate gravity, create defensive barriers, and bend electromagnetic radiation around vessels to achieve perfect invisibility. Carl had spent weeks studying the test data from Elena's experiments and had reached conclusions that excited and terrified him in equal measure. The dark matter engines were not just advanced propulsion systems. They were tools that allowed humans to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe with nothing more than focused thought and willpower. Human consciousness could shape dark matter in ways that seemed to violate every known principle of physics. The first test flights had revealed capabilities that exceeded even Carl's most optimistic projections. Ships equipped with dark matter engines could accelerate to incredible speeds without generating inertial forces that would crush their crews. They could phase partially out of normal space-time to avoid obstacles or enemy fire. Most remarkably, they could communicate instantaneously across any distance by creating temporary bridges through higher dimensions. Ryan initiated the startup sequence for Earth's Pride and watched as his ship's instruments registered energy, readings that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. The dark matter core came online with a gentle hum that seemed to resonate through every atom of the vessel. Reality itself began to bend around the ship as the engine established its connection to forces that dwarf the power output of entire star systems. Beth activated New Horizons engines at the same moment, and both ships disappeared from normal space in flashes of purple light. They reappeared instantly in a distant star system that had never been visited by human vessels, their arrival completely undetected by the automated monitoring systems that the galactic powers used to track ship movements throughout known space. The two ships spent several hours conducting maneuvers that would have been considered impossible by conventional physics. Earth's Pride danced through an asteroid field at speeds that should have reduced the vessel to cosmic dust, while New Horizon folded space around itself to compress a journey of several light-years into a single step. Both ships pushed their engines to higher and higher performance levels without experiencing any mechanical stress or crew discomfort. Ryan opened a communication channel to Admiral Stone back on Earth, though the distance between them should have created a significant transmission delay. Instead, his message reached Stone's office instantly through a dark matter communication tunnel that existed outside normal spacetime. Stone's response came back immediately, confirming that humanity now possessed communication technology that surpassed anything available to the galactic civilizations. Meanwhile, the Valdari Consortium's trade networks began experiencing subtle disruptions that their analysts could not explain. Cargo ships reported brief gravitational anomalies along routes that had been stable for centuries. Sensor equipment detected mysterious energy signatures that appeared and vanished before detailed scans could be completed. Navigation systems occasionally registered phantom contacts that seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Ambassador Keth Val of the Valdari Consortium reviewed reports of these incidents from his luxurious office aboard the trade station Nexus Prime. The Valdari had built their galactic influence on their monopoly of interstellar commerce, and any threat to their transportation networks represented a challenge to their power. Kethval suspected that some unknown faction was developing new technology, but his intelligence networks had found no evidence of such research among the known civilizations. Kethval paid particular attention to reports from systems near human space, though he dismissed the possibility that humanity could be responsible for the anomalies. Human vessels were primitive and easily tracked by Valdari monitoring systems. Human technology was based on designs that the Valdari had sold to them decades earlier, and no human colony possessed the resources to conduct advanced research without Valdari knowledge and approval. The Valdari intelligence reports noted increased human shipping activity in several remote systems, but this seemed to be nothing more than expanded mining and colonization efforts using conventional technology. Human ships were detected entering and leaving these systems on predictable schedules, using standard fusion drives and jump gate networks. The reports contained no mention of unusual energy signatures or impossible travel times. Carl Davis reviewed the stealth capabilities that had allowed human ships to avoid detection during their test flights. The dark matter engines could bend light and other electromagnetic radiation around vessels, to achieve perfect invisibility to conventional sensors. More impressively, the engines could create localized distortions in space-time that made ships appear to be in multiple locations simultaneously or to exist slightly outside the normal flow of time. Beth established New Horizons' first secret colony on a world that the Galactic Survey had classified as uninhabitable due to its unstable magnetic field and frequent solar storms. The planet's harsh conditions made it worthless to other species, but the dark matter engines allowed human settlers to create protective barriers that neutralized the environmental hazards. Within days of landing, the colonists had established a thriving settlement that would have been impossible using conventional technology. Ryan conducted combat tests that proved Earth's pride could outmaneuver and outgun any known class of alien warship. The ship's weapon systems could focus dark matter into concentrated beams that passed through conventional shields as if they did not exist. More importantly, the ship's defensive capabilities allowed it to phase partially out of normal space to avoid incoming fire, while remaining able to attack targets in regular reality. Admiral Stone reviewed the test results and realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. Every other species had developed technology through slow incremental improvements over millions of years of civilization. Humans had leaped directly from primitive fusion drives to reality-manipulating engines in the span of a few months. They had not just caught up to the galactic powers, but had surpassed them entirely. Stone began planning humanity's emergence from obscurity with the same careful precision that had allowed them to develop their technology in secret. The galaxy's established civilizations would not welcome competition from upstart humans, and Stone knew that humanity's survival would depend on demonstrating their new capabilities in ways that could not be ignored or dismissed. The time for hiding was nearly over. War Commander Scarnthex had waited his entire career for the opportunity to prove Scarn's superiority over the pathetic mammals that called themselves humans. The hegemony of Scarn viewed humanity as nothing more than clever animals who had learned to use tools, and Scarnthex intended to demonstrate why reptilian intelligence remained supreme in the galaxy. His attack fleet of 12 heavy cruisers represented enough firepower to sterilize an entire planet, and he was bringing all of that destructive potential against a single human colony on the remote world of Kepler 442b. Scarnthex studied the tactical displays that showed the human settlement as a cluster of simple structures, surrounded by basic defensive installations. Intelligence reports indicated that fewer than 50,000 humans lived on the planet, most of them miners and farmers who posed no military threat to anyone. The colony's defenses consisted of outdated missile batteries and energy shields that could barely stop a single Scarn warship, let alone an entire attack fleet. The war commander had chosen this target specifically because of its weakness and isolation. Kepler 442b lay far from the major space lanes, and human reinforcements would take weeks to arrive, even if Earth decided to mount a rescue mission. Scarnthex would crush the colony, capture any survivors for interrogation, and return to Scarn, space with proof that humanity deserved no respect from the galactic community. Captain Susan Blake received the alert about incoming Scarn vessels while she was reviewing supply manifests aboard her ship, the Defiant Star. Susan had commanded human patrol vessels for 8 years, and she had grown tired of running from superior alien forces whenever they decided to test human resolve. The Defiant Star was different from any ship she had previously commanded, equipped with the same dark matter engines that had revolutionized human capabilities across the galaxy. Susan's vessel looked unremarkable from the outside, designed to resemble the conventional human destroyers that alien forces had learned to dismiss as minor threats. The Defiant Star's hull contained none of the obvious modifications that might alert enemy sensors to its true capabilities. Only a careful examination would reveal the subtle changes that marked the ship as something entirely new in galactic warfare. The 12 Scarn cruisers dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the bronze coloring that marked vessels of the hegemony's primary fleet. Each ship stretched over a kilometer in length and carried enough weaponry to level a city. Their shields could withstand sustained bombardment from conventional human weapons, and their armor had been forged from materials that human industry could not even produce. Scarnthex opened a communication channel to the human colony and delivered the traditional demand for surrender that Scarn protocol required before any attack. He expected the humans to beg for mercy or attempt to negotiate some pathetic arrangement that would spare their worthless lives. Instead, the colony administrator simply informed him that the Defiant Star would handle the situation and recommended that the Scarn fleet withdraw immediately. War Commander Scarn Thex laughed at the humans' arrogance as his tactical officer reported the approach of a single human destroyer. The vessel appeared on their sensors as a minor contact, barely 1/10 the size of a Scarn cruiser, armed with weapons that could not penetrate even civilian-grade Scarn shields. Scarn Thex ordered his fleet to destroy the pathetic human ship before proceeding with their planned assault on the colony. Susan Blake felt the familiar sensation of her ship's dark matter engines coming online as reality began to bend around. The Defiant Star. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced during her years commanding conventional vessels, a feeling of perfect harmony between human consciousness and the fundamental forces of the universe. She could sense the enemy ships as distortions in space-time rather than mere objects detected by sensors. The Scarn attack began with a coordinated missile barrage from all 12 cruisers, hundreds of guided projectiles designed to overwhelm any defensive system through sheer numbers. The missiles should have reduced the Defiant Star to expanding clouds of plasma and debris, but Susan's ship simply vanished from normal space as the weapons passed harmlessly through the area where it had been floating moments before. Susan reappeared behind the Scarn formation and opened fire with weapons that drew their power directly from the dark matter core. Purple beams of concentrated exotic energy struck the nearest cruiser and passed through its shields as if they were made of paper. The Scarn vessel's armor offered no protection against forces that operated on principles unknown to conventional physics, and the mighty warship cracked open like an egg struck by a hammer. Scarn Thex watched in horror as his most powerful vessel was destroyed by a single shot from the supposedly helpless human destroyer. He ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on the human vessel, but the Defiant Star moved through space in ways that defied every known law of motion. The ship accelerated, decelerated, and changed direction without regard for inertia or momentum, dancing between enemy fire with impossible grace. Susan's ship seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously as the dark matter engines created temporal distortions around the vessel. Scarn targeting systems could not maintain locks on a ship that appeared to be in several places at once, while actually occupying none of them. The Defiant Star attacked from angles that should have been geometrically impossible, its weapons striking targets from directions that contained no visible threat. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes as Susan systematically destroyed every ship in the Scarn attack fleet. Her weapons carved through enemy hulls with surgical precision, disabling engines and weapon systems before delivering killing blows to command centers. The Scarn cruisers had been built to dominate conventional opponents through superior firepower and defenses, but they had no answer for technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. War Commander Scarn Thex transmitted a desperate message to Hegemony Command as his flagship began to break apart. Around him, he reported that humanity possessed weapons and defensive systems beyond anything in the known galaxy, technology that made their previous assessments of human capabilities completely meaningless. His final transmission contained full tactical data about the engagement, including sensor recordings that proved human ships could manipulate space and time itself. The automated systems aboard the dying Scarn flagship transmitted the battle data across the galaxy before the ship's destruction silenced them forever. Within hours, every major civilization had received copies of the recordings that showed a single human vessel destroying an entire Scarn attack fleet without taking any damage in return. The footage spread through galactic networks faster than any previous military intelligence, shocking governments and military commands that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the battle recordings from her laboratory aboard the Stellar Dawn and felt a mixture of pride and concern about what her discovery had unleashed. The dark matter engines had given humanity the power to defend themselves against any aggressor, but Elena understood that such capabilities would fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with every other species in the galaxy. The age of human weakness and dependence was ending, but the age of human responsibility was just beginning. High Counselor Vel Tharon of the Eternal Republic of Althara reviewed the tactical data with growing amazement and unease. The Althara had been humanity's only consistent allies during their early years in galactic society, offering protection and guidance to the struggling newcomers. Now Veltharan realized that the species they had been protecting possessed technology that made Althara military forces seem primitive by comparison. Admiral Kevin Stone received reports of the engagement while reviewing plans for humanity's formal emergence as a galactic power. The battle at Kepler 442b had accomplished what months of careful preparation could never have achieved. Every species in the galaxy now knew that humanity possessed capabilities that demanded respect and fear in equal measure. The secret phase of human development was over, and the galaxy would never again view humanity as weak or helpless. Corporate Federation CEO Prime Nexus 404 analyzed the economic implications of humanity's technological breakthrough from his orbital headquarters above the industrial world of Nexus Prime. The Corporate Federation had built their wealth on monopolizing advanced technology and selling inferior versions to lesser species. If humans could manipulate dark matter as the recording suggested, they no longer needed to purchase anything from established galactic powers. Susan Blake brought the Defiant Star back to the human colony and began coordinating cleanup efforts in the debris field that had once been the Skarn attack fleet. She knew that her victory would have consequences far beyond saving a single human settlement. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted in the span of a 15-minute battle, and humanity would now face challenges that came with being recognized as a major force in galactic affairs. The recordings of the battle continued spreading through. Galactic networks, as species that had never paid attention to humanity, began reassessing their relationship with Earth and its colonies. High Counselor Veltharan stood in the observation deck of his flagship as it approached Earth's orbital space, watching the transformation that had taken place since humanity revealed their true capabilities to the galaxy. Where once a handful of primitive stations had struggled to maintain basic life support, now hundreds of gleaming facilities orbited the human homeworld like a crown of stars. Each station hummed with dark matter energy that bent space around it in subtle but unmistakable ways. Veltharan had spent decades protecting humanity from the more aggressive galactic powers, believing that he was shepherding a promising but fragile species through their early development. Now he realized that the Eternal Republic of Althara had unknowingly been allies with a civilization that possessed technology beyond anything his ancient species had achieved. The humans he had thought of as students had become teachers with lessons that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Fleet Admiral Danny Cooper watched the Althara diplomatic vessel approach from his command center aboard the massive human station called New Geneva. Danny commanded humanity's newly revealed space fleet, dozens of vessels equipped with dark matter engines that could outmaneuver and outfight anything the galaxy had seen before. His ships patrolled human space with the confidence of a species that no longer feared any potential aggressor. Danny had been chosen to demonstrate humanity's new capabilities to carefully selected representatives from major galactic civilizations. The demonstration would take place in the system's outer asteroid belt, far enough from inhabited worlds to ensure safety, but close enough to Earth that the message would be unmistakable. Humanity was no longer asking for acceptance in galactic society but announcing their arrival as an equal partner. The human fleet that assembled for the demonstration consisted of 30 ships, ranging from small scouts to massive dreadnoughts, each one incorporating dark matter technology in ways that pushed the boundaries of known science. The vessels moved through space with fluid grace that made conventional ships look clumsy and primitive. They could accelerate without visible propulsion, turn without regard for momentum, and disappear from sensors while remaining perfectly visible to the naked eye. Dr. Amy Foster worked frantically in her archaeological laboratory as she studied artifacts recovered from ancient ruins on a dozen different worlds. The young xenoarchaeologist had made discoveries that explained humanity's unusual compatibility with dark matter technology, findings that would shock the galaxy even more than their military demonstrations. Amy had found evidence that dark matter manipulation was not a new discovery, but a rediscovered art that had once been practiced by a precursor species millions of years ago. The ancient ruins contained inscriptions and technological fragments that described devices remarkably similar to human dark matter engines. The precursor species had apparently developed the ability to harness exotic matter for travel and communication across vast distances, but their civilization had vanished from the galaxy, leaving only scattered remnants of their achievements. Amy's translation suggested that the precursors had called themselves the architects and had viewed dark matter as the fundamental building material of reality itself. Corporate Federation CEO Prime Nexus 404 arrived at the demonstration aboard his personal luxury vessel, a ship that represented the pinnacle of conventional galactic technology. Nexus 404 had built his fortune by maintaining technological monopolies that forced other species to purchase inferior products at inflated prices, but humanity's breakthrough threatened to destroy the economic foundations of his empire. If humans could manipulate dark matter, they no longer needed anything the Corporate Federation produced. Nexus 404 brought with him offers of partnership and technology sharing agreements that would have been unthinkably generous just months earlier. He proposed joint ventures and research partnerships that would give the Corporate Federation access to human dark matter technology in exchange for manufacturing capabilities and distribution networks. The CEO had spent his career exploiting less advanced species, but now he found himself in the unfamiliar position of begging for scraps from former customers. Admiral Danny Cooper began the demonstration by ordering his fleet to perform maneuvers that showcased their complete mastery of space-time manipulation. Human ships folded space around themselves to travel instantaneously between distant points in the system. They created gravitational fields that bent light and matter according to their pilot's will. Most impressively, they demonstrated the ability to exist partially outside normal reality, becoming immune to conventional weapons while retaining the ability to affect the physical universe. The assembled alien observers watched in stunned silence as human vessels performed feats that their own civilizations had considered theoretically impossible. Ships accelerated to significant fractions of light speed without generating detectable energy signatures. They passed through solid asteroids as if the rock were empty space, emerged from higher dimensions to appear behind enemy positions, and communicated across interstellar distances without any transmission delay. High Counselor Veltharon realized that humanity had not simply developed advanced technology, but had achieved a fundamental understanding of reality that exceeded the knowledge of civilizations millions of years older. The Althera had spent eons studying the theoretical foundations of physics, but humans had learned to treat those foundations as malleable tools rather than immutable laws. Humanity had not just joined galactic civilization, but had transcended its limitations. Dr. Amy Foster transmitted her archaeological findings to the demonstration fleet just as the military exercises reached their climax. Her discoveries about the precursor architects provided context for humanity's unprecedented technological achievement and offered hope that other species might eventually learn similar techniques. The galaxy's ancient civilizations were not as advanced as they believed, and humanity's success proved that evolution was still possible even for species that considered themselves mature. Amy's data suggested that the architects had developed dark matter manipulation through millions of years of careful research and incremental progress, building their understanding step by step until they could reshape reality itself. Humanity had achieved the same breakthrough in mere months, suggesting that human consciousness was uniquely compatible with exotic matter in ways that other species could not match. Humans were not just using dark matter technology, but were partnering with it on a fundamental level. The economic implications of humanity's emergence began spreading through galactic markets as trade relationships established over millions of years suddenly became obsolete. Species that had built their civilizations on controlling access to advanced technology found their monopolies worthless when humans could create superior alternatives using nothing but dark matter and human ingenuity. Currency values fluctuated wildly as investors tried to assess the long-term impact of humanity's technological revolution. Several minor civilizations that had been suppressed by the galactic powers began sending secret diplomatic missions to Earth, hoping to establish relationships with humanity before their former oppressors could intervene. These species had spent centuries or millennia under the economic and military domination of the established powers, But humanity's example suggested that rapid advancement was possible for anyone willing to think beyond conventional limitations. Fleet. Admiral Danny Cooper concluded the demonstration by ordering his entire fleet to vanish from normal spacetime simultaneously, leaving only empty vacuum where 30 advanced warships had been floating moments before. The human vessels reappeared in perfect formation around the observation platforms, where alien diplomats sat in shocked silence, having traveled through dimensions that conventional sensors could not even detect. The message was clear. Humanity could go anywhere and do anything without regard for the limitations that constrained other species. Veltharan opened communications with Admiral Cooper and formally requested a private meeting between Althara and human leadership to discuss the future of their alliance. The High Counselor knew that the relationship between their species would need to be completely redefined now that humanity had surpassed Althara capabilities in every meaningful category. The Eternal Republic could no longer offer protection to a species that had become the galaxy's dominant power in the span of a few short months. CEO Prime Nexus 404 made increasingly desperate offers of partnership as he realized that humanity had no need for anything the corporate federation could provide. Human dark matter technology could create materials and devices superior to anything produced by conventional manufacturing, and human ships could travel instantly to any location without using established trade routes. The economic empire that Nexus 404 had spent his life building was becoming irrelevant in the face of humanity's self-sufficiency. Dr. Amy Foster continued analyzing precursor artifacts as reports arrived from human archaeological teams working throughout the galaxy. The architects had apparently hidden technological caches on thousands of worlds, devices that would only activate in response to dark matter manipulation. President Nathan Cross stood before the Joint Assembly of Earth's government and the Galactic Council, knowing that his words would reshape the political structure of the galaxy forever. 1 year had passed since humanity revealed their mastery of dark matter technology, and the established powers were still struggling to accept the reality of their changed circumstances. Nathan had spent months crafting a vision for galactic civilization that would benefit all species, rather than perpetuating the ancient hierarchies that had dominated interstellar politics for millions of years. The assembly hall on the neutral station of Concordia Prime contained representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy, species that had previously viewed humanity as useful servants at best and annoying pests at worst. Now these same beings listened with respectful attention as a human leader outlined principles for a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than domination. The transformation in their attitudes would have been amusing if the stakes had not been so high. Nathan began his address by acknowledging the fears and concerns that many species had expressed about humanity's rapid advancement. He understood that the galaxy's ancient civilizations felt threatened by upstart humans who had achieved in months what they had failed to accomplish in millions of years. However, Nathan argued that humanity's success offered opportunities for mutual benefit rather than zero-sum competition between species with different technological capabilities. Commander Lisa Park supervised the construction of the first joint research station, where human and alien scientists would work together as equals rather than as masters and students. The facility orbited a neutron star, whose exotic properties made it an ideal location for studying the fundamental forces that governed dark matter behavior. Lisa had handpicked researchers from a dozen species who had demonstrated both scientific brilliance and the flexibility to work with revolutionary new ideas. The research station represented humanity's commitment to sharing their knowledge with species that approached them in good faith rather than hoarding their advantages for military or economic gain. Human scientists would teach alien colleagues to understand dark matter manipulation, while learning from their partners' expertise in fields where other species had achieved greater advancement. The collaborative approach offered benefits that neither humans nor aliens could achieve working alone. Lisa's team had already made progress in developing simplified dark matter devices that could be operated safely by non-human species, though the technology remained far less sophisticated than what human consciousness could achieve. The research suggested that other species could eventually learn to harness exotic forces, but their progress would require decades or centuries of careful study. rather than the intuitive leaps that had characterized human development. The human colony worlds had been transformed from struggling frontier settlements into thriving centers of commerce and culture, connected by instantaneous transportation networks that made interstellar distances irrelevant. Commander Lisa Park's colonization efforts had established human settlements on worlds throughout the galaxy, including planets that other species had considered unreachable or uninhabitable. Dark matter technology allowed humans to live comfortably in environments that would kill members of other species within minutes. These colonies served as beacons of human capabilities and gathering points for species that wanted to establish diplomatic or trade relationships with Earth's growing interstellar empire. Human settlements welcomed alien visitors and offered technological assistance to civilizations that approached them peacefully, but they also served as fortified positions that could defend themselves against any conceivable attack. Captain Tony Garcia commanded the human response fleet when the Shadow Collective finally emerged from the galactic periphery to reclaim what they considered their stolen heritage. The Shadow Collective had remained hidden for millions of years, watching as younger species struggled with technologies that their ancestors had mastered before the current galactic civilizations had evolved. They were the descendants of the precursor architects, and they wanted their dark matter secrets back. Tony's fleet of 50 human vessels faced twice as many Shadow Collective ships that incorporated dark matter technology, similar to humanity's own capabilities. The Shadow vessels could manipulate space and time with skill that came from millions of years of practice, but their approach to exotic matter manipulation was fundamentally different from humanity's intuitive methods. Where humans partnered with dark matter through conscious will, the Shadows treated it as a tool to be controlled through complex calculations and predetermined protocols. The battle that followed demonstrated the superiority of human adaptability over ancient knowledge. Shadow Collective vessels were more sophisticated than anything else in the galaxy and operated according to principles that their builders had perfected over geological time spans. However, their rigid adherence to established techniques made them predictable to human opponents who could modify their approach based on battlefield conditions and creative inspiration. Tony's ships danced through space with fluid improvisation that confused shadow targeting systems designed to counter conventional dark matter manipulation. Human vessels combined their exotic capabilities in ways that the Shadows had never considered, creating hybrid effects that achieved results impossible through traditional methods. Most importantly, human crews could adapt their tactics in real time while Shadow vessels remained locked into battle plans that had been successful for millions of years. The Shadow Collective's defeat marked the end of the galaxy's last connection to its precursor heritage and established humanity as the undisputed masters of dark matter technology. Tony's victory proved that innovation and creativity could overcome even the most ancient wisdom, and that evolution continued even for species that considered themselves the ultimate expression of technological development. The Shadows had preserved their ancestors' knowledge perfectly, but they had never learned to improve upon it. President Nathan Cross announced the formation of the new Galactic Alliance during a ceremony attended by representatives from hundreds of species that had chosen to partner with humanity rather than resist the inevitable changes in galactic civilization. The alliance would operate according to principles of equality and mutual benefit, with Earth serving as one of several founding council worlds rather than as the supreme authority over lesser members. The Alliance Charter guaranteed technological assistance for member species while prohibiting the use of advanced capabilities to exploit or dominate other civilizations. Humanity's dark matter knowledge would be shared with any species that demonstrated peaceful intentions and scientific competence, though the most advanced applications would remain restricted to prevent their misuse by aggressive powers that might threaten galactic stability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez addressed the scientific community from her new laboratory complex on Luna, explaining how humanity's understanding of dark matter had evolved beyond even her most optimistic projections during the original breakthrough. Human researchers had learned to treat exotic matter not as a force to be harnessed, but as a partner in reshaping reality, according to conscious intention. The relationship between human minds and dark matter seemed to operate on principles that transcended conventional physics. Elena's research suggested that human consciousness possessed qualities that made it uniquely compatible with the fundamental structure of spacetime, allowing humans to achieve effects that remained impossible for other species despite their superior technical knowledge. This compatibility explained why humanity had succeeded where older civilizations had failed, and why human dark matter technology continued to advance at rates that defied conventional understanding of scientific progress. The galaxy's economic systems underwent massive restructuring as species that had built their wealth on technological monopolies found their business models obsolete in the face of human capabilities. The Valdari Consortium's transportation networks became irrelevant when human ships could travel instantly between any 2 points in space. The Corporate Federation's manufacturing empire collapsed when dark matter manipulation could create superior products from raw energy and human imagination. However, the economic disruption also created opportunities for species that embraced cooperation with humanity rather than clinging to outdated advantages. Civilizations that offered unique cultural perspectives, artistic traditions, or specialized knowledge found eager human partners who valued diversity and innovation over economic dominance. The new galactic economy rewarded creativity and collaboration rather than the hoarding of technological secrets. Commander Lisa Park established the first permanent human settlement in the galactic core, a region that had previously been considered too dangerous for habitation due to intense radiation and gravitational anomalies. Human dark matter technology allowed the colonists to create stable living spaces in an environment that challenged the fundamental assumptions about where life could exist. The settlement served as both a scientific research station and a symbol of humanity's determination to push beyond all limitations.